What's up, strongest men, women, and children from blocks all around the world? I am my block's strongest man, and I'd like to welcome you back to a discussion of Thor versus Stephen Ward, the results show, collaborating again with Hunger Smash Fitness. Ciao, homie! Welcome back to My Block's Strongest Man, where we bring strongman into the mainstream by discussing all of the latest strongman events in the greatest analytic detail that you'll find anywhere on YouTube. We also show you how to replicate some of those events at a smaller scale with objects all around you in your own home. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe to this channel so you get notified of all of the latest videos that I release 4 times a week for your viewing pleasure. Make sure to comment below whether you agree or disagree with my videos. I love the engagement, and I respond to every single comment. Now on to today's topic.
Well, here we are again. So they just had the fight, and they're now live streaming it. So this is going to be our live reaction to it. Once again, I'm Isaac with Hunger Smash Fitness, and John.
Yeah, and I'm My Block's Strongest Man.
Alrighty. So first off, I think it's hilarious looking at the record, how they made sure to include Thor's record is 0-0-0. Yeah, it's his first fight ever. So I guess you got to start somewhere.
It's really funny. Yeah, there's a few funny things on this tail of the tape here. First of all, I think kind of the kilograms, I know that that's how you do it in strongman, but it favors them. It makes the difference look less than what it is.
Yeah, I know. Because I think Thor still has, it's like 120 pounds on Steven, something like that.
I did the math. I think he's 344 or something like that, and Steven came in, I believe it was 217. So yeah, it's a whole person's difference.
Yeah, exactly. That's your average individual's difference.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, I mean, the scale doesn't lie, but I think maybe the measuring tape does, because I don't think these guys are 7 inches apart. What do you think?
It's hard to tell. I don't know if I mean, it could be also maybe Thor has some poor posture unless he's actually getting measured, in which case he stretches up to his full height. I do know some tall people that do that, where they'll stand naturally in a more hunched over position. But yeah, I feel like it's probably closer to 5 inches or so difference, but
I think so too. Yeah, I mean, when Steven walks, we'll see. When Steven walks up to him at the end of the fight, like, he's up to Thor's eyebrows. So there's no way that that's, 7 inches difference. But
unless Thor's got a massive forehead, but I don't see that necessarily.
Yeah, well, actually, let's try to forward this over a little bit to, the closer to the beginning of the fight, because they have actually replayed this a few times today. So you do get the chance to kind of scroll through it a bit. Caveat, this is a free stream. Like, we're not showing anything that anyone was told not to show. They've broadcast it on coresports.world, as well as this is actually Thor's channel. So they've showed it several times today. And here's the ring walk. I'll kind of go through that quickly.
Yeah. Good entrance there.
Yeah. Steven's looking good for, I've heard he hasn't fought in a while. He's looking in good shape.
Yeah, I think he came in. He gained some weight for this fight, it sounds like. But yeah, I think he came in decent shape. He's fighting an amateur, so maybe he's not training the same way as if he was going for a title fight. But from what I've seen, it looks like he was preparing. He was getting ready.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one takeaway I had from this fight is the fear that I had that it would be a glorified sparring session did not come to pass. Like, I think they were trying.
Yeah, I think I do think from watching the replays and stuff, the highlights or whatever, it does look like maybe Ward was kind of keeping a little bit back in the tank, but he did, he got in there and they really traded some punches. And
yeah, I mean, I think Ward's trying to be wary of Thor's reach right here. And he's given him maybe a little bit more respect than he needs to. But I think I mentioned this to you earlier. It's funny because when I first saw this broadcast, I was watching it on my phone. And then I went to the laptop I'm using now, which is a 15-inch. And then I went to my 65-inch TV. And the larger the screens got, the more dominant Ward seemed to me. Like, it seemed like they were closer together on the small phone screen. But when you really could see
Yeah.
what was going on and how many body punches Ward lands, it seems to be a disparity, like we thought it would be.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, like we said, this is Thor's first fight. He is an amateur. He's not used to being in the ring. And you can see even with his punches there, he especially early on, he's doing more of these haymakers and stuff. He's not really doesn't have the finesse necessarily, but as the fight progresses, his punches do get better. He keeps them in closer. They're more rapid. So he does kind of pay attention to that a little bit, which I was surprised. I figured it would go the other way around. But I think after he got pummeled a couple times, he realized having the arms closer in and having a more direct route is a little bit helps your torso feel better at the end of the fight.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give him credit for coming out with patience. Most new fighters don't do that. They wing haymakers like crazy. And, if you look at him here, he has, he's not the type of boxer that a professional boxer like Stephen Ward is, but he is trying to have some composure. So you got to give him credit for that. Right.
Yeah. It is fascinating, though, because Thor's footwork is actually really good with this too. I was really impressed with how rapidly he'll shuffle forward and back and side to side. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, most people that aren't used to boxing stand there like an oak tree, and then if they have to move, it's big lumbering steps, and they're so focused on their hands they forget about their feet. And he actually has decent footwork, especially for an amateur.
Yeah, I would agree with that. For an amateur and for a guy his size, I think he does have good footwork as well. And, I've been, a little bit critical of his punches, but his footwork is good. The one thing I would say just strategy-wise, so his foot speed, I think, is good for his size. Strategy-wise, right. And it's funny because he was doing this while you were talking, so I couldn't make the point. But kind of, if you look at the stances, Thor's leading with his right, which makes him a southpaw, meaning right. his power hand is his left. And so Stephen Ward is the opposite. He's leading with his left, meaning his power hand is his right. And so I noticed a few seconds ago, and that's the end of the first round, I noticed a few seconds ago, Thor was circling to his left, which is into Stephen's power hand. So you don't do that when you're experienced.
Right. And like you said, that's something that he'll learn with time. But yeah, look at those punches there where he cocks it back, and Ward's able to see it coming from a mile away.
Yeah. The other thing there he landed a good one, but the other thing I noticed was he was landing in the first round some rabbit punches, so they kind of clinched up. And for those who don't know, rabbit punch is a punch behind the neck, and it's illegal in boxing and discouraged because it's close to the brain stem and can cause really bad injury. Right. And it's funny because I mentioned this in the comments of somebody's video, and someone tried to correct me saying, no, it's not illegal. Absolutely, it's illegal for that reason of danger. And so, anything to the back of the head or anything is not allowed. So Thor, I know your arms are long, but we'll have to try to clean that up a little bit. No rabbit punching in the future.
Yeah, that'll be something to watch with the Eddie fight, because he might intentionally try and do it with Eddie.
It's funny because I read that guy's comment on YouTube, and they literally at the beginning of this fight, the referee said no rabbit punching.
Yep. I know. But yeah, the first round, I think Ward definitely dominated the first round. I feel like the second round, Thor had he's able to hold his own a little bit better.
Right.
I definitely think Ward still overall controlled the second round here. Yeah, there you go again. Those are more love taps. They're not full on punches to the back of the head, but
right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think so spoiler alert, this is 3 rounds for anybody that doesn't know. That was the duration of this fight. And I did hear Bas Rutten mentioning during the telecast that the Thor-Eddie Hall fight will be 6 rounds. So Isaac, I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I did hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree. The second round is Thor's best round, but he still didn't win it. And this is interesting. So you see Stephen Ward go down and you kind of put your hand to your mouth. Watch how he gets knocked down. It's a punch to the upper back. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, but it knocks him down. And I think that's a perfect example. Thor has a lot of power in his punches. but like we've said before, you know, they're slow and they're not as controlled as maybe if he was actually, you know, in an actual boxing match,
Right.
which you would expect. He's not a boxer right now. He's training with it and he's trying to learn and get experience in the field and everything, but it's still not his forte. His forte is still picking up heavy weights. And those gloves don't weigh much, I'm assuming. So
Yeah, I don't know. They vary. I think 16 ounce is the typical for heavyweights, if I remember correctly.
I think so. Yeah, I did a little bit of boxing for 6 months or whatever. To play with it, and the gloves that I was given were 16 ounces. They were okay. I can't remember if they were 2X or 3X, but yeah, they were the ones that we ended up playing with.
Okay. Interesting.
Which even with that, 16 ounces you do start to feel the weight on your hands when you're swinging like crazy for a while.
I think also because you perspire in them, and so the stuffing absorbs that.
Yeah. Yeah. So there may be 20 ounces at the end of the fight.
Yeah. Depending on, I think like the old time gloves were horsehair, so you didn't have that problem, but it's probably foam these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. As the fight goes on too, you'll see what I was really surprised at was Stephen Ward's ability to bully Thor to the ropes and into the corner with that size disparity. And you'll see, I don't know if it's the third round, if I remember correctly, but you'll see he's actually hurting Thor to the body to the point where he's making him wince. Like he's not knocking him down because he's so big, but he is causing him pain. So I think you'll see that in the last round coming up.
Well, and Ward's technique is really good. I mean, and so even if he doesn't have Thor's strength, still getting hit by him is gonna hurt, and for a boxer, he's a big boxer, and this is where I saw this is where I kind of noticed like it's because I figured it might be staged at first, and then I saw blood coming from Thor's face, and I was like, okay, it may not be as staged as I first thought after the first round.
Right. Yep. But yeah, so even those were glancing blows. They were blocked or parried, I guess. Mm-hmm. And Steven hit a really nice uppercut to the abdomen there. Like that's a pro move,
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And it's fascinating seeing because for the most part, Thor does make contact a couple different times. He does have a couple, decent hits, like the one to the back of the shoulder blade, which is not a common strike that you see in boxing. And the ones that he does make contact with, you can see it throws Ward back a ways. You can tell that they hurt. But for the most part, Ward's able to just kind of to move in between the punches and kind of ride it out without taking much contact.
I think Ward also is able to minimize the contact by either moving away or to the side, so it's not the full impact.
Yeah. So so Thor's still getting some contact. It's a glancing blow, but it's not going to carry the full weight of it. And it's going to fatigue Thor out more because if you're swinging like, with those massive haymakers or whatever, and you're not making contact with anything, it's really exhausting.
Yeah. Now he's back to the big roundhouses again. I think as we both said, he had tightened up in round 2, but here he's back kind of to the roundhouses again. And it's inexperienced.
Yeah, and there he got a couple, kind of decent punches in there too.
Yeah.
Thor did. But I think at that point, Ward got in so close inside his guard, he wasn't really able to get as much power behind him as he wanted.
Right. I mean, like if you have any doubt what's going on, Thor's bleeding already from the nose, and and Ward is not. So
yeah. Well, and I think Ward's handling himself really well because I feel like at this point he probably could have gone in and finished off Thor fairly easily.
Yeah.
Or not fairly easily, but like he could have gone in and finished Thor off. I feel like he was kind of holding himself back. Because partly because I think he's respectful of Thor. That is his first fight. He doesn't want to demolish him. But also, like, Thor has landed. I was surprised. He actually has landed a couple hits that looked like they're not going to break any ribs or anything, but they look like they're going to hurt just a little bit.
Yep.
And I think Ward was realizing that he does have some power in his punches. So I do want to give some kudos to Thor. Like he did much better than I was expecting.
I would agree with that. But here, this is that's where I thought Thor was hurt to the body. He's holding on because he knows he's hurt. And I don't blame him, right? Like I would be hurt too against a pro boxer. I fought a pro boxer. I fought a pro boxer one time, like in a training session, and it hurt a lot. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that was a nice hook there by Ward.
Yeah. And as you mentioned too, like you can see when Ward makes contact, yeah, Thor's wincing and he's moving back. He doesn't want to get hit.
That was another right hook there. And while we've been talking during this round, this is the fourth time Ward's bullied him back to the ropes. Like this never happens in boxing, where even a guy 20 pounds heavier than you're able to push back to the ropes like that. It's like some circling training that Thor has to do, but also very impressive for Ward.
Yeah. But even with some of those hits, where you can see some of those hits too, where Thor's coming in and Ward will just kind of move and it just slides right on by.
Yep.
And, and man, and
there's a good shot at the nose damage. Yep.
Yep. Man.
But yeah. I mean, to wrap it up, like, I thought Thor was really gracious. They didn't pick a winner or a loser. They treated it like a real exhibition. Nobody won, nobody lost. But you and I know the Ward won, and and Thor was very gracious at the end. Treated it like a learning opportunity. He actually didn't say anything about Eddie Hall until he was prompted to do so, which was
which I was happy about, because I mean I know that's what this is all about is building up to that Thor Eddie Hall fight. But yeah, I thought Thor handled it really well. I thought he was like you said, he was really respectful. Didn't let his ego get in the way too much.
The interesting thing though is that he's talking about another 2 or 3 exhibitions before the Eddie Hall fight, and I don't know what you think about recovery time with that many fights between now and September.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of fights to pack into 1 year, and I don't know who he's going up against either. So
right,
part of it, and if it's 3 more fights like this, his recovery is probably going to be better, because if it's only 9 minutes total of getting pummeled, his recovery could be decent, but that's still a lot of fights to try and pack in. And then with the Eddie Hall fight, I'm not sure, because I don't think Eddie's going to be as gracious to Thor as Ward was. No. And at the same time, I mean, Eddie's not necessarily an experienced boxer either, so it'll be interesting to see how they go after each other.
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah, I think that it'll be interesting, because I know the heights are supposed to be similar between Eddie and Stephen Ward, but Eddie's a lot bulkier guy, so I don't think he's going to respect Thor's power as much as Stephen Ward did. I think he's going to walk in with more reckless abandon.
Yeah, and Eddie has a lot of power in his punches as well. So I mean, it's not as much technique as Ward does, but so that's another thing too, though, because like even seeing, because you could tell by the 3rd round, Thor was already getting gassed, and like we said, the 2nd round he was getting into his stride, his punches were getting better, and then it kind of fell apart in the 3rd round again, where he just got sloppy. And I know he doesn't have that training to stay disciplined throughout the entire fight. So he and Eddie doing 6 rounds when neither of them are really experienced boxers. It's going to be interesting, because I have a feeling their form is probably going to kind of go out the window.
It might. It might. Yeah, I got to go back and look at that Eddie exhibition from years ago. I think he did do 6 rounds then, but that's a long time ago.
Was it a full 6? Okay.
I think so. I mean, you also got to give him credit for having that swimming background and the lung capacity and kind of that's not nothing, right? You got to take that into consideration as well.
Right. Although that was when he was quite a bit lighter, so there is that.
Although I think I saw him swim on Strongest Man in History, so he's done.
And he's made some posts about how he still does swimming like 2 or 3 days a week or something like that, just to keep his cardio up. So I know he's still active in it, but because I've swam a bunch in my past, and I know when I was 200 pounds, it was way easier to move through the water. Now I'm around 300-ish pounds, and it's just harder,
Yeah.
Mass doesn't move through the water as well.
True. So,
but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how both their cardio and everything hangs out with 6 rounds.
Yeah. So I think, is it fair to say, in summary, Thor did better than we thought he would do? We'll give him credit for that. He was gracious at the end of the fight. He was thankful to Stephen Ward for the opportunity. He seems like he's trying to learn as much as he can leading up to the Eddie Hall fight. His footwork was much improved from when he began his training, whatever it was, 6 months ago. His punches, not so much. Is all that fair?
Yeah, I think that's a good recap right there. Yeah. And especially, I was really surprised, especially in the second round, when he started cleaning it up. And I was like, oh, you're actually kind of starting to look like a boxer a little bit. And then the third round came around and he's back to looking like a complete novice. So, but yeah, overall, I think he did way better. And kudos to Ward as well for coming out. And like I said, especially in the third round, I feel like Ward really could have demolished him if he wanted to.
Yeah, he was really turning it on.
Mm-hmm. And he was gracious enough to hold back a bit and not completely obliterate Thor, which, I don't know if he was going to. I don't know if he planned on it, or maybe he was a little bit, he might have been nervous about Thor's punches, because the couple hits that Thor landed looked like they hurt. So
I heard Ward after the fight say, "Oh, he hit me with one good one, and I got on my bicycle after that." I don't know how much of that is him. I don't know about how much of that is him being gracious, and how much of that is true. Because even with the upper back shoulder shot, when we saw it in slow motion, that even looked like a little bit of a glancing blow, like Stephen Ward was slipping. But I digress.
Yeah. It's hard to know. And I know a lot of it is probably, like you said, it's them being gracious to the other athlete, but yeah, either way, it was a better fight than I was expecting. So I will put that out there. But
yeah. And kudos for showing it for free, right? That's great.
Yeah. That was awesome. Happen. Yeah. I wish more sports would do that where we could watch it for free.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you guys should all hop on my channel and check on Mammoth Strain Challenge 5 coming up on January 23rd. That's also a free live stream. And guess who's going to be doing the official after show reaction live stream? This guy.
Awesome. I know. I'm excited.
You're invited. You are hereby cordially invited.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of really great athletes that I'm excited to watch them, and it'll be fun. I think Mammoth is going to be a really good show this year.
Yeah, let's plan for a couple days from now, get together and talk about that one.
I'm down. Let's do it.
All right, thanks, dude. It was a pleasure speaking with you again. Great fight, great night, and we'll see you next time.
All right, same here.
Have a good one. Take care, brother.
So, after all that discussion together, I want to give you my round-by-round breakdown so you have that. Obviously, Stephen Ward won the fight 30-27. It was 3 rounds. He won all 3 rounds 10-9. And the way that broke down, I want to give you the actual breakdown of the 4 categories that boxing judges look at, rather than just giving you a generic response like you may find in other places on the internet about Stephen Ward just being generally sharper. So, round 1, effective aggression. Stephen Ward was more aggressive and more effective. In round 2, I think Thor turned up the aggression and really started to stalk Ward, although Ward was able to circle and evade him at will. You got to give Thor credit for being more aggressive. So I think he edged out Ward in the aggressive category, but wasn't as effective because he wasn't able to catch him or cut off the ring. He did some cutting off of the ring, but not enough to land good shots. So round 3 again, Stephen Ward more effective and more aggressive, I thought, clearly so. Second round was Thor's best round. So, ring generalship, I think throughout the fight, Stephen Ward did what he wanted to, whether it was closing distance, attacking with sharp punches, or evasion, like even in his defense of moving away, he was controlling what he wanted to do in that fight more so than Thor was. Thor was chasing him and not connecting as much as he would have. It was clear that the ring general was Stephen Ward, as we all expected. In terms of hard and clean punches, I thought that Stephen Ward had the harder and cleaner punches overall in all 3 rounds. Thor did have some hard punches, so let's not discount that. He's taken a lot of heat, even from me, about his punches being very slow, but he did land some stuff. A couple of them were inside in the clinch, and, he did show the ability to land some punches. Stephen Ward showed the ability to take some punches from a guy that size as well. Let's not get that twisted, but Stephen Ward all the way in the many more harder and cleaner shots. In terms of defense, I gotta give Thor some credit in the first round for his footwork. His footwork was actually decent throughout the fight, although Ward's kind of stepped up later on, which is why I couldn't give Thor the edge in footwork in all 3 rounds. But in round 1, Thor moved away, patiently and methodically, and did not come out winging big shots. He did some of that later, but he showed more patience than a guy in his first boxing match, for sure. So, footwork, I think they both had good footwork in round 1. Stephen Ward was doing a lot of closing distance, sliding to the sides, and maybe some fancier stuff, but both of them had good footwork, 10-10 in that respect. In terms of the other rounds, round 2 and 3, I think Ward started to dominate and really had the better footwork, the evasive maneuvers, the closing of the distance, and just kind of did what he wanted with footwork, where Thor kind of got a little bit into a state of frenzy, winging shots and really trying to chase a little bit more than he should have. Round 3, as you saw with my discussion with Isaac over at Hunger Smash Fitness, Stephen Ward was like pushing and bullying Thor to the ropes. And this is a guy that outweighs him by 127 pounds, was it? I mean, that's incredibly impressive. And so all the rest of the defensive stuff, blocking, parrying, rolling, slipping, all goes to Stephen Ward easily. A lot of this stuff Thor didn't do at all, and you wouldn't expect a guy who's just learning to box to do, right? But Stephen Ward was parrying, was blocking well. Thor blocked here and there, but for the most part was trying to move away, which is fine. But if you're looking at a diversified defensive stature, Stephen Ward had it all over Thor. So that's how my 10-9, 10-9, 10-9 equivalent of 30-27 fight broke down in each of the 4 pieces that judges look at when judging a boxing match. So even though they didn't judge a winner, it's clear Stephen Ward won the fight. I think it's clear that if it went more rounds, Stephen Ward would have won more handily even and would have done more damage than he did. So thanks again for joining me and my buddy Isaac over at Hunger Smash Fitness for this reaction video to the Thor versus Stephen Ward boxing match. And of course, until next time, as always, ciao, homie. So if you like this video and want to learn more about any of the products I described during this video, make sure to check out the links in the description below. So if you like this video and haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing using that button right there. And also stay tuned for some other videos that you might love blooping up right there. This one is the one that YouTube thinks that you will like the best, and this one is the one that I think you will like the best. As always, share this with everyone, and until next time, ciao, homie.